Yes, this is a clickbait title, so before you click away, hear me out. Hi, hello, how are you? If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Maddibluhme, and I'm a multi-genre author focusing primarily on sci-fi and fantasy. And if you are not new here, then thank you so much for coming back. It means the world to me. For today's video, I wanted to switch it up a little bit, and instead of like vlogging or talking about the writing craft, I just wanted to sit down and have a nuanced discussion, which I know is hard on the internet because algorithms favor strong reactions, especially like anger, and sound bites. But my corner of the internet is pretty cool, so I think we can all do it. For the purpose of this video, to align with the thesis, which is the title which brought you here, hopefully, we are going to change the definition of hater to simply mean someone who engages critically with the media they consume, because someone who just mindlessly hates things and is just always like talking down on everything is also not engaging critically with the media that they consume. So that is not what we're about here. What we're about is critical engagement. I wanted to talk about this because there's always a cycle in online bookish spaces, and it's coming back around, and it always brings so many phrases that I actually am just growing to hate. And these are phrases like, this was a vibes read, I just turned my brain off to enjoy it, or it's not that deep, or arguably, probably my least favorite now is just let people enjoy things. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always so happy when people are reading, but reading without critical engagement is bonkers to me. And I think this problem, it has many different causes. It is certainly like a microcosm for the world at large, especially with changes that we are seeing, especially if you are American like me. And we can talk all day about things like illiteracy, anti-intellectualism, capitalism, and all that, because I think it all plays a part. Now, I don't think my one single video is going to get to the bottom of this, or that this video is going to be the be-all end-all solution. But I truly hope that if you clicked on this video and you didn't already agree with the title, that you hear me out and come with an open mind. Because in my old age, so the older I get, the more I believe there are a lot of things that aren't our fault, but they are our responsibility. And I think critical analysis and engagement is part of that. So I wanted to start with why critical analysis is important. And to do that, I wanted to start with why we even have story in the first place. There is definitely a romance and art to writing, and I love that, and I think we should hold on to that and romanticize things. However, I don't think that romanticization should come at the cost of pushing away all like pragmatism and like science and fact. And story boils down to a survival mechanism. It began as a way to keep ourselves and our community members alive. The more complex a language is, and as communication between humans evolved, it enabled us to say things like, hey, Jerry ate those red berries and he died, so you shouldn't eat those ones, but the blue ones are entirely safe. Or, hey, our village is hungry. There's a big mammoth that would feed us for a month. So if you, me, and they get together, we can just track this mammoth down and wear him down until he's really tired, and then we can hunt him, kill him, and bring meat back to our village, and we'll be warm during the winter and we'll have a lot of meat. And that's how it started. Very simple. So story is integral to our survival and our forward progress as a species, and humans are curious by nature. So we have the sun coming up every morning, there's rain happening, and we have early humans drawing early like cave paintings, probably to tell stories of like, hey, this hunt went super, super well, and celebrating the people in their community. And especially as we form more permanent living groups rather than just nomadic living groups, and we start farming, sometimes the harvest is good and bountiful and it's great. And sometimes there's a lot of frost or rain or some other natural disaster that wipes it out. And so we have to start coming up with reasons why. And that's when we have religion pop up. And that's why there's religion all over the world. And it wasn't just like in one place. It's because as we spread out and we saw these things, we're trying to come up with explanations for them. And we didn't have scientific tools at that time. So we're coming up with the next best thing. So story also then became a way to explain the unexplainable and also to showcase moral behavior. If you think about early fairy tales, they were very moral because it was teaching children how to live a good life, how to be safe, how to exist within the world. And at the end of the day, even though story has exploded and it can be for entertainment, and I love story as entertainment, but at the end of the day, a story is how we make sense of the world. And at this point, we are all designed for story. When story is being shared, we are locked in. That's why we will repeat stories, we share them because that is just part of being human. And that is why, without critical analysis, our brains don't actually know the difference between fact and fiction. If you read about someone getting into a car accident, the same parts of your brain line up or light up under a brain scan as if you were the one getting into a car accident. So, critical analysis, first and foremost, allows you and allows your brain to distinguish that separation of what is real and what isn't real, especially because I think it is important to read a wide variety of topics, or if you're reading heavier topics or darker topics, this is especially important to take that time and consciously reaffirm what's real and what isn't real, or what is something you enjoy in fiction, but you don't enjoy in reality. Secondly, critical thinking is necessary for the real world, especially in this day of AI. So we have to discern whether something is AI or not. We have to determine whether something is true or not, especially with we're under a deluge of information, right? We have information overload, and not all of it is true, and a lot of it is propaganda from one source or the next. So we do have to determine what's real, what's not real. And fiction reading is part of developing that skill. We don't exist in a vacuum, or reading does not exist in a vacuum. Critical thinking when you're reading, even for fun, and it doesn't have to be like critical thinking when you're reading, even for entertainment, helps develop those skills to a point where you can do it easier when it comes to those like real life situations. Critical thinking is your problem solving, decision making, communication, and it's how we understand the world. So it's incredibly important. So I truly, truly, truly believe that you should be critically engaging with everything you read, watch, listen to, whatever. And I also don't think critical analysis has to be like writing a dissertation or writing an essay to like prove what you felt or experienced or understood of a work. It can be as simple as just having a conversation with yourself. What did you like? Why did you like it? What did you dislike? Why? Were there things that were appealing because they were in this like fantasy space that you wouldn't necessarily find appealing in real life? And I also think having these simple conversations with yourself is also where we can learn to separate enjoyment from quality, because I think that's something that existing within these book spaces, we have lost quite something that we have lost a little bit, where people are misconstruing enjoyment and quality. And I think that, you can like something that is bad and you can still enjoy it, and vice versa. You can not enjoy something that was good, and I have done both myself, but it's important to recognize that. So, that's why I think critical analysis is important. Why am I bringing this up? Because I believe readers deserve a good product. Mindless consumption with no digestion is not only harmful for our wonderful brains, but it also opens up the door for grifters. And there are so many grifters in the writing and reading spaces, like so many. These people don't care about you or your time or anything other than bringing in like a quick buck. And who does that benefit? Some of these books that are being pushed into spaces are designed to give you like immediate and repeated dopamine hits with no effort on your part. And our brains are kind of dopamine addicts, right? We want the dopamine, but kind of like consuming heavy sugar over carbs, the the rush, it's a rush, but then it's fleeting, right? And it ends quick, it ends faster, so you're searching for that next dopamine hit. So it's kind of like, eating. I love sugary foods. I love a sweet treat, but if that's all I'm consuming, it's not going to be healthy for me physically, and having a like sturdier, heartier meal is going to give me that energy to last throughout the day. Books are the same thing for our mind, right? But it's like a digestion of ideas and thoughts and things like that. And I think even if you want a cake, you deserve a cake that has the icing on it. And it's disappointing if you would get a cake and it's not cooked in the middle or the icing is like falling off. Like that's disappointing. And I think sometimes some of these books are like that, where you're not even getting a cake. It's like half baked or it has like eggshells in it. And I think you deserve better than that. And like sometimes, if I want McDonald's, like just some fast food, and I want my hot and spicy with a crispy Sprite, I deserve a hot and spicy that is cooked to temperature, has ingredients that are not rotting or gross. And I think books are the same way. If you want like a lighthearted book, you deserve a lighthearted book that is well made. Here's the thing. I think sometimes I think sometimes in the book spaces, it feels like enjoyment has to mean poorly made or simply made, and I think that that is not true. Enjoyment is subjective. Craft and literacy and critical analysis is a lot less so. And I think that you can write a really, really well made, easily digestible, like lighthearted read, but that's still a lot of work. It's a lot of work on the author's part to create something simple or to create something complex. You as the reader have those differing levels of like readability, ease of reading. And I think sometimes we conflate the two. On the writing side, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people who are like pushing out unfinished drafts and they're like, oh, well, I'll just edit it for like the next edition or whatever. And I think readers deserve better. And I don't necessarily think that they're doing it maliciously or to be like part of like the push for anti-intellectualism in America or anything. I think it ties to wanting something, but not putting in the time to like learn something. I spend a lot of time thinking about Beyonce's comments about how no one wants to make an album anymore. And I had watched someone on TikTok talk about how they had brought up that quote, and they were talking about how, especially with the accessibility of AI, that mastery is going to decrease because we're kind of at a time and we're at like a point in our culture where if you want something, you can get it immediately. And I think that goes back to that like just cheap dopamine hit. And while it is alluring, I would I think you just deserve better. And I think it's also important to think about who benefits from an entire population of people that aren't thinking critically and aren't looking deeply into things and aren't discerning between what's real and what's not real. And I'm not talking about just in books, I'm talking about like in the real world. And also, a lot of these books, I can see the appeal, but if you aren't looking at it critically, a lot of these books are pushing very like traditional values or conservative values. And I think if you're reading that over and over again and you're consuming without digesting it, it will start to shift how you see the world or how you understand the world. Because again, we are designed for story. Like our brains lock in for that. So that's just what I wanted to share. That's kind of my thoughts about this whole, it's not that deep. Reading is just for fun argument. I don't think that it's just for fun. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on critical analysis in book spaces, and I will see you guys in the next one.